Beyond burnout, the courage to be yourself, even across cultures.
Hi, I am Monika Hutnik and I help leaders learn how to lead their international and virtual teams. Together with my team at ETA Go Global, we make the change happen by means of training, coaching, facilitation, mastermind, action learning, and any other ways. And this podcast, A Step Ahead, has been created for all who want to grow in such an international remote environment, who want to grow as leaders, as HR, as change agents, and simply as humans. I'm inviting you here for discoveries and insights. All recordings and materials are available at www.astepahead.pro.
Burnout is becoming the new disease of the 21st century. And there might be many reasons why we get burnout here in the Western civilization. Today, I would like to invite you for an exploration of one of the reasons for that. And that's about doing something which is not about what you are, what you really are. This is something about doing things in a style, in a way which is far away from your natural style of behavior, but maybe doing something towards values which are not yours, and keeping on stretching yourself continuously just because you want to fit the imagined expectations of the environment. I'm having my lovely guest today, Nadege Welsch, who will be telling us not only about her own journey, but also about many journeys she accompanied as a coach working across cultures. Nadege, I'm so glad to be having you in the conversation today.
Thank you so much for having me, Monika, and for touching on this important subject that I think all of us have in the back of our minds, but don't necessarily understand what is happening inside. So I think this conversation is going to be really insightful for many, hopefully. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Nadege, what you are doing, working with people to work and live across cultures, but also to find and discover themselves deeply, has also given the fruit of a book which you published recently. The title is Shift, and I find it so much in line with what we are discussing today.
Yeah, so Shift was an idea that I had. I always wanted to write a book, and I thought, okay, what kind of topic should I write about so that it can really resonate with people? And because since a very young age, I've always been on a quest to understand myself and understand others. And I thought, why not write about this? Because, at the end of the day, it's providing a tool to people so they can do it at their own pace. They don't necessarily need me unless they want to go deeper and have accountability, right? But it's just a way for them to take this moment, read the book. The book, honestly, you can read in an hour. But if you do the exercises, if you do the reflection, I've had a few friends of mine that read the book that said, Nadege, actually, you know what, that's really in line with what I'm doing with my coach, and I'm actually going deeper with your book. So I think This was a great recognition of this kind of self-awareness path, if you want, to question, is it me behaving or is it something that I learned? So kind of going a deeper layer and understanding what is actually happening, what is me and what is conditioned in a way, right?
That's a very right question to ask, and a question where we can discover something new when we look for and find answers. And I wonder what made you start your discovery journey.
Well, as I said, as a child, I've always been curious, and this hasn't left me. I'm still very curious. And in school is interesting because I grew up both in France and Germany. My mom is French, my dad is German, so I went to school both in France and Germany. And then in France, I was bullied because I was German. I was not one of them. And when we moved to Germany, I was bullied because I was not fully German. I was half. And so I thought, hey, what is happening? Why am I put aside by others, you know? And so I started to look inside. Okay, what could be triggering others to behave that way, right? And this has been a constant question. Even when I give trainings nowadays and I introduce myself as half French, half German, I get the question, which one are you? Well, I'm both, and I'm Nadege, you know. So I like to say that I'm a citizen of the world, so I can kind of adapt. And that's why I created my company. The name is Be a Chameleon, because I can adapt to different situations, right? And so this is what I've done my whole life, adapting to the situations. And I thought, but who's underneath that? Because it's draining, you know, when you need to play a role in a way, or pose as someone that others are expecting to see, it becomes really draining. And you think to yourself, yeah, but I'm not happy. I'm getting migraines. My body is responding to that. And, you know, our nervous system is like that. If you overstretch yourself, your body reacts. That's why some people in burnout, they might just want to sleep. They may get migraines all the time. You know, they're not well. So why is it that I'm not well? How can I listen to my body? How can I listen to my mind? And I found out that actually understanding, okay, what are my triggers? What are my patterns? Who have I been conditioned to be? Both by society, by education, in the organization, but most importantly from the family. Who do you have to be, right? And so based on that, once you understand, okay, who do I need to be? I need to be someone that is outwardly, that is more extroverted. I need to socialize a lot with people, but that is not who I truly am. I'm more of an introvert. So when I put the mask of the extrovert, I'm stretching myself, right? I'm not who I am. And so, you know, both in school, in my studies, and then in the organization where I worked, at some point I had enough. I said, you know what? I cannot wear this mask anymore. This is hurting my body. This is hurting my mind. I need to stop that. So that's when I decided to leave the corporate world. I was working as a structured finance advisor, and at the time I was in Singapore, so I had also the added intercultural layer into the mix. And I said, no, I want to dedicate myself now to understand human beings. And that's why I moved to London to do a master's in business psychology, because I believe that even if we work across cultures, at the end of the day, there's a lot of psychology in that. So I did my master's, and then I decided to work for myself, which is interesting because when you live in a world that is conditioned for you to be a certain person, then those people say, but why are you doing this? Who is going to pay for that? Why are you, why are you being helpful to others when you could make much more money in finance, And I was like, well, it's not about that. It's about following who I am and what I need to do. What is my purpose here on this earth, right? Because we have one life, and this life is to pursue what you feel you need to achieve throughout your lifetime. And for me was helping others, helping humans understand each other, right? And so that is the kickstart of the journey. So I was 30 when I left the corporate world and I started the business psychology. And since then, I've been continuing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations,
Thank
Nadege.
you.
And I'm, resonating so much with you. I recently was working with a client who told me, but my parents were so open. They never told me what I needed to do in life. And I thought I'm finding myself in this story as well. My family was also very open to what I will be doing in life, but the what was easy. They had those unspoken expectations about the how. Yes. So no matter what I do in life, I should get this specific, outcome of, for example, being independent or being in a certain role or a position. Yes. So it's much more subtle what we get. So sometimes I know that people get expectations from the parents, like about, for example, finance. Finance is always needed. You always earn good money in finance. Yes. An accountant will always have a work, have a job, which might not be no longer be true with the AI improvements, by the way, a little bit crazy. But what you are referring to is a much more subtle, yes. And when you grow up in this, and all of us do, we never realize that in fact we go on an autopilot. We never ask ourselves, what do I want to do in life? Instead of that, we were using the autopilot, which was given into our hand, like pressing a little button. Okay, that's Nadege. Okay, that's your life. Somebody is telling you about that. Like I can observe this with many people. But how to get out of this autopilot? It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not an easy thing. And I think also the autopilot is because we learn to adapt to belong, right? And that starts already in school.
That's so strong.
So how can I be with the cool kids? I don't want to be the one that is pushed aside. But then when you are the one being pushed aside, is okay, so what can I do so I feel that I still belong in the class? I don't need to be with the cool kids, but I still need to make it through all these years until
Yes.
I graduate, right? So who do I need to be? And for me, it was like, okay, then keep quiet. Don't always speak your mind, because if you speak your mind, this is when the repercussions happen. People don't speak to you, right? So you learn to behave in a different way. And what is interesting, and I've worked with a few leaders and managers that had been bullied in school as well. And they say, yeah, but we learn to kind of put these things aside. We don't talk about it. We keep it to ourselves, right? So they wouldn't let the teachers know. They wouldn't let the parents know. They would handle it themselves. Now, of course, some people handle it really well in the sense that, okay, I don't need to be with the cool kids. I will surround myself with those who actually appreciate my company, and others will really suffer. Right, they will go into depression. They will have to have a psychologist to help them, because it really makes you question who you are at a deeper level and why people reject you. And I think rejection is a big thing for human beings. You don't want to be rejected, right? You want to be included. You want to be liked, but you cannot be everyone's cup of tea, and not everyone is your cup of tea as well. So it's understanding how can we navigate that. And you can work with someone who is very different from you, as long as you understand where are my limits and what is the other person's limits, and how can we actually communicate in a way that is beneficial for both, right? So that we don't step on each other's toes, so that we respect each other. And I think respect is a huge word here, because I believe that sometimes, and I've had an incident here in Portugal, for example, I've been bullied by my own neighbor, telling me that I'm not Portuguese and that I don't understand the culture and that I should stay quiet in meetings. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I was very respectful. I said, okay, I understand your position, fair enough. However, like you, I'm an owner, so I believe that I also have a right to say something. And then he kind of stepped back and said, okay, right. So I think respecting everyone's preferences, but also ways of communicating, whether you are Portuguese or not, whether you are French or not, it doesn't matter. You are sitting at the table with everyone else. So everyone else needs to be heard, right? And it's funny because when you look on social media, a lot of people say, yeah, leaders who are introverts are not the best leaders. And I can tell you that this is not true. I believe that
it has been many times proven that it's not true.
Yes, Because at the end of the day, and I'm not saying that an introvert listens better than an extrovert, absolutely not. It depends also on your, how you pay
Inner
attention,
dialogue.
inner
I know
dialogue,
that.
exactly.
Yes,
But
yes.
there is a strength to both, right? And it's about understanding what is the strength of an extroverted leader and what is the strength of an introverted leader, right? And this is why self-awareness is really important. If you know that you are an extroverted leader, but the majority of your team is more introverted, how can you tune into their energy so that they don't feel overwhelmed when they are asked to deliver something, right? So there are a few tips here that I gave some of my extroverted leaders to help them. I said, okay, if you want more participation in meetings, maybe give some information before the meeting as to what you are expecting the team to provide, right? If you need some insights, if you need some data, just let them know in advance and they will come with the information. If you need to make a quick decision, then send the information beforehand so that they have time to read through it, and then you can, as a team, make a decision quicker than if you do it on the spot. Because some of us, myself included, we will talk about global disc later, but I am a high C, which is competence, and high S, which is service. So I'm more on the introverted side, but I also like data. So before I make any decision, whether it's in my private life or in business, I will need time to reflect. So I will need the data, I will analyze the data, and then I will make my decision. So of course, when you are in a high pace environment, this can slow things down, right? Because you're expecting to have the answer straight away. But if you prepare in advance and say, hey guys, we're gonna make a decision on this, please have a read, send me your questions, or send me, what you are not sure about, and then we can have a discussion before we make the decision. This helps a lot, and this helps keep the pace and not slow it down, if it makes sense.
Absolutely. I love this piece of advice and I find it so practical myself. By the way, finding advantages and being able to use various types also helps us dive into what the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman was writing about, the thinking, fast and slow. Well, the good decisions are usually of a big decisions, yes, in life, usually need a little bit more of a reflection. So in fact, the little procedure or the little advice which you described helps us activate the thinking slow, the reflecting thinking, the analytical thinking, the critical thinking, which, by the way, is mentioned now as the top skill of the future, especially in the era of artificial intelligence, where we get a lot of input which doesn't have to be true. So the critical thinking is a skill, but it doesn't come like this. I'm not able to snip like this with my fingers. Okay, it was supposed to be like, okay, so it doesn't come like this in a moment. It does require a little bit of a time, and I think it's just and justified to give each other this little piece of time. In the story which you shared, even about this manager, I think the point is to understand that other people might have different needs. They operate in a different way. And it's not about rejecting you. It's just about being able to cooperate together, yes? And in this way, we can really avoid the stretch, which you mentioned in the beginning. Yes, the more we have to stretch, the more we have to adjust to something which is not about us, the more energy we have to keep on using on it. And as the end result, the burnout is just the next step in some cases. So obviously, there might be many various reasons for a burnout. For example, psychological safety in a team as well. Is it a safe space to talk about some of the challenging issues? But I think the stretch is something that kind of scratches you and sucks your energy day by day if you are not really able to get out of the autopilot, and, as you mentioned previously, get onto the driver's seat. Yes, that's a trick. Yes, how can we get onto the driver's seat in our lives, really discover what we are, who we are, how to make this huge reflection, discovery?
I think the first step is to really understand, okay, what is conditioned. And so this is in the book, this is one of the chapters. What has conditioned you, you know? And so, as I said before, conditioning can come from the family, it can come from the society that you're living in, can come, so the culture as well, can be the corporate expectations. If you're working in an organization, there is a certain way that you need to show up. And so it's understanding what has been conditioned in me and what is my true self. Where do I feel best? You know, how do I perform best? Probably not in these environments. And growing up, you know, my dad is very extroverted, so I had to put on this mask, you know, being extroverted, where we always have to go up. Nadege, you need to talk to people. And I'm like, but I don't like talking to people. I don't like being put in these situations, you know. So every time when we were going out with his friends was like, okay, put the mask on. But then for some of you listening in who may be more on the introverted side, you know that afterwards you need some time to recuperate, right? You need some time to relax and gather your energy. And I like to use the analogy of Simon Sinek. Have you heard? He says that every morning both introverts and extrovert gets 10 coins. Okay? So for an introvert, throughout each interaction that they have, they give a coin away. So of course they end up with an empty cup. So they will have to recharge to get these coins back and be able to interact again. For the extrovert, every interaction they get a coin. So they get, you know, the bowl gets bigger and bigger. So it's really interesting. And that's why in my book I talk about energies, because it is about energy. How much are you giving out? How much are you getting in? And so this is where we, to be really, so just to recap. So you need to understand what is your conditioning. Who is your true self? Where do you feel best, right? What is the correct environment for yourself? One that is slower, less loud, you know, where you can take time to make decisions, you're not under pressure. And at the end of the day, you know, I think we need to learn and understand how we show up in the world. So how does Nadege show up in the world? She shows up like this. And that's okay. Right? As long as I understand how I show up in the world and how I show up towards others or in relationship to others, then I can adjust and make sure that I adjust in the right way for myself. Right? So this is where we say we can tap into other energies, but we also need to be mindful not to overdo it. Right? So we need to know, okay, I've given enough of my red energy. Now I need to come back to my service energy, relax a little bit, and then I can come back in, right? So it's like everything. It's like an athlete, right? When you perform on the field, you know when to give your 100% and you know when to slow down, right? If you do a marathon, you cannot give 100% at the beginning because you'll end up not even halfway, you'll be tired. So you need to keep a certain momentum where you can rest a little bit and then give back 50%, rest a little bit and 50%. So you need to think of the long run. How is my body and my mind going to react to that? And these are little tricks that I work with leaders, you know. Okay, so how can you take 1 minute or two to recharge? Sometimes it's just going to the bathroom, asking for a minute, get out of the room, recharge, go for a coffee on your own, because sometimes you have people, let me go for coffee with you. No, please, I'll take my coffee. And it's okay. It's okay. It's boundaries, right? So sometimes, and it's funny, I had a leader, she's more on the introverted side as well. And she was saying, Nadege, you know, when I come to work, I need to hide. So I need to literally, because there's a little wall and then people can see me entering, I need to go down to go to my office, because in the morning I need at least half an hour of calm before anyone comes in. And so the moment they see me, they will run to my office and they will want to speak to me. And I cannot deal with that. said, okay, so how about you speak to them and say, guys, when I arrive in the morning, let me have my coffee, give me half an hour, and after that, my door is open for you. So I said, try that. And she did. And she came back and said, oh my God, yeah, I have my half an hour. And then they understand, they come after, they ask for permission if they can come in instead of just running in and talking. I said, yeah, so it's just setting healthy boundaries and knowing what you need, right? Because
Yes.
if you're exhausted after an hour, entering the office is not going to help you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I really feel this story. It's what was stopping her. Maybe an attitude that being unavailable is wrong. While in fact this is what she needed to be in fact available for the people for the rest of the day. So it seems to be a very fair deal to be able to communicate that, but first you need to accept that that's not an error about you. That's about how you function, yes, as an operating system. By the way, this is also why I love this rising discussion about the neuroscience, but also the neurodiversity. I think it really helps us understand how our brains function. We've got the different beauties in our brains, and once we learn to respect that and communicate that, some of them are just physiological features. Yes, so it's very technical. Yes, if I'm physiologically capable. If my physiology is satisfied, is safe, then I can be available to others. I really like that. And you know what I thought on Tuesday? It was on Wednesday this week. I was in a conference, which was very unusual to me. I was invited as a speaker, and it was a conference for salespeople. And I immediately had this stereotype in my mind of salespeople who, push on you, jump on you. They keep on approaching you. They offer you something. I was really scared, not about my presentation, but about how the conference will go, because I decided to stay most of the day just to get to tap into a little bit of a different world. I don't usually sit in sales conferences, so I thought maybe that's going to be something interesting. And guess what? We were already at lunchtime. And I was talking to some people, and this one lady told me the morning was so intense. Then I really welcomed this very quiet and balanced session which came afterwards. And I was like, whoa, that's the point. Not all of the presentations have to be, extroverted and pushy. And our audience also needs that. Yes, there are 170 people in the room, and some of them have already gathered their coins, and some of them also want to gather their coins through a little bit more of a quiet presentation. So even being a speaker does not mean any specific thing, because different people in your audience will be looking for different features of your presentation. And I agree with you. It's about asking myself, who am I really?
Yes, who am I really? And I know, I'm a facilitator myself. I do a lot of workshops, I do trainings, and people say, but you're introverted. How can you be in front of an audience? And I say, well, yes, sure, I'm introverted, but I know how to tap into my extrovert side, right? Because energies are like that. You have all of them. It's just about learning to tap into them and knowing, okay, when do I need to recharge? So I know when I give the trainings, when the breaks happen, I tend to leave the room, because otherwise, people come to you, ask a lot of questions. So I will leave the room for 5 minutes out of the 15-minute break, and then I will come back for the 10 remaining minutes in case anyone has any questions. And it's the same for lunch. I will go to lunch with the people. I will have lunch with them, have a chat, and then 10-15 minutes before it starts again, I will go for a little walk on my own so that I can recharge my energy. And this is what I recommend to other facilitators or leaders that I coach as well, that give, conferences, or that have to speak to their team for a long time. I said, okay, make sure that you bring some breaks into it for yourself, but also for others who may need that break, right? It doesn't need to be intense all the time. You can take 5 minutes. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, regulate yourself, gather your coins again, and give them out again. if we use Simon Sinek's analogy. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Talking about the business gurus like Simon Sinek, I also watched this little video of Daniel Pink yesterday, quite coincidentally. And what he said is how to find your real purpose in life. Yes, that refers to the question, who am I really? Yes. And he said, observe yourself. And see when you have those moments of an extended time when you don't know the time is running, when you are just so deep into your activity, when you are so involved into it that you are just within it. This is a state of flow. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, think about all your interactions with people. What have they usually been saying that they got from you? Yes. And this is what you give. This is what people are able to get from you. So probably the overlap between your flow and what you actually give to people is somewhere around your purpose. I think that's very useful and very much in line of our discussion today. Also keeping the energy and preventing the burnout, just like I mentioned in the beginning. Now, Nadege, we also mentioned that we might behave differently in different environments, like you mentioned about France, about Germany, about Singapore, about London as well. Now you live in Portugal. So these might be cultural environments, but also professional environments like finance. Yes, finance is probably different than marketing as an environment. And also in the professional roles, like being a leader also burdens you with a set of expectations of how you supposedly should behave. So there might be this little nuance of what am I really and what's expected of me, how to discover that. I know that you work with Global Disc. How is it or how can it be helpful for people in this discovery?
So I believe that Global Disc is a great tool because, first of all, you understand, you have the disc element, so you understand your why, your how. But to understand your behavior, you need to understand also what lies underneath, which is the cultural aspect of things, right? So what is interesting is that when I looked at my Global Disc, knowing that I'm half French, half German, when I looked at the cultural side, I was more on the service side, which is more Asian countries. And to be fair, I felt in my element in Singapore. Why? Because it's quieter, it's structured, you have more time to think, decisions are not made necessarily fast. Where I found a little discrepancy for me coming from Germany was that, yes, the hierarchy is very important. and I did a few cultural faux pas around that, especially because you cannot challenge authority. So what I learned in Singapore very quickly, and I was lucky this happened at the beginning of my expatriation, is that you should not challenge your authority. So what did I do? I disagreed with something. I had a question. So I walked over to my leader and asked him the question directly. And he didn't look at me. He didn't turn around. So then I thought, okay, fine. So I went back to my little seat. And then our team assistant called me and said, if you have a question, come through me. Don't go directly to him because he will lose face in front of the others.
Wow, she was very knowledgeable.
And this is where I realized, I said, oh, okay, right. So I do like the environment. However, this is one thing that is a bit of a discrepancy between myself and the Singaporean culture. And it's okay once you understand how to handle it, right? It was the same when I had to ask my team to deliver something. I could not just go there and say, can you deliver the PowerPoint tomorrow? I would hear yes, but then the surprise was that the next day nothing happened. Until you understand that, okay, give the context, give all the information, explain to them what your expectations are, what would you like to see in that presentation, and maybe where they can find the information. Because in the Western world, a lot of us think that is common sense. Yeah, but they know what they should put in the PowerPoint because they've done it before for other clients. but it's not always common sense, right? And some people need more information, they need more context, they need to know exactly what you want to do. And that's okay. And this is where I think the cultural aspect of the global disc comes in, but also your personality, right? So, for example, myself, when I work with Latin Americans, I studied with Latin Americans when I was in Madrid. And whenever they were talking about something, they would jump from one topic to the next, and I could not follow because I didn't have the context. So I always had to ask, okay, what are we talking about right now? Can you enlighten me? I'm not following. Or even with my partner moving from one, I said, but what are you referring to? What are you talking about now? Are you not following? I said, I am, but you jumped from one topic to the next. So I need to know where I am at the moment. And that's okay. And I tell leaders as well, if you're not understanding where your team is heading or what they are necessarily talking about because they moved from one topic to the next, don't be shy to ask, okay, what are we actually discussing here? Because then you will not lose the message, right? And you will not assume that they are talking about something, and after half an hour you realize, oh, that was not what they were talking about. They were talking about something else, right? So this and because you shape your environment as a leader, so you need to build trust, you need to build safety, you have to have proper communication, or at least a communication that everyone can understand. If you see that your team is more high context, then bring in a little bit more of context for you to be able to navigate it, for you to structure it, but also for the team to see that, you're connecting, you want to know what they're talking about. So you build the trust, you build the safety, psychological safety as well. Because if my leader is not scared of asking because they didn't understand, then I can also ask, right? In a way. So I think this is really important. If we are not sure about something, just ask. And I always told myself, but I cannot ask. People are going to think I'm stupid. No, they don't. Actually, they prefer you ask so that everyone is on the same page. And I do believe that it's better to all be on the same page rather than assume what others are saying or thinking, right?
Nadege, many of these things that we've been discussing today are also available in your book. Can you tell us more about this book? How can we use it, where we can find it, and what's the outcome?
Right. So the book is actually the self-awareness journey. Again, understanding how you show up in the world, right? So there are 8 chapters. It goes from what have I been conditioned to be, to understanding this conditioning, looking at your derailers or saboteurs. So understanding the patterns that you keep repeating and understanding how you can stop these patterns and instead of reacting, responding. And there's a huge difference there when you react from a trigger and when you respond to one. The energy on both sides is very different, right? And then looking at your energy flow. So what are your dominant energies? What do they mean? How can you interact with those who are different from you? So it's really understanding that self-awareness helps you meet others where they are. Okay, so that's why I call it where self-awareness meets connection, because the more self-aware you are, the more you can connect with others, because you understand that others have other preferences and you can meet them in the middle. And there are a few exercises around reflective exercises. So in the book you will see there are pages where you can write, and then at the end you have questions that go a little bit deeper, so you can go with your own little pad and write on that. And the book can be found either on my website with the link, or you can also find it on Amazon very easily. So the name of the book is Shift. And if you look in Amazon, you just put Shift and then my name, Nadege Welsch, and usually it will show up.
Beautiful. And your website address is what?
Is www.be-a-mindset chameleon.com. So beachameleon.com.
Be a chameleon, like in English, is the English way of writing the
Yes.
chameleon. Okay, but with CH at the beginning.
CH.
Yes, in Polish we write with K. Yes. Okay, Nadege, beautiful. I really like it, and I think the flavor of this conversation lets also feel invited to start or to continue the journey of self-discovery, not only to prevent burnout, but in fact to lead a more completed to lead a more, how shall I say that, Nadege?
I like to say lead in a more aligned life for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more in alignment with you. Yeah.
More in alignment with you, and with this beautiful logic, which I have also experienced myself. The more we get aligned with ourselves, the more open we get to our people, and this is what makes it so beautiful in the end. Thank you so much for being my guest, Nadege.
Thank you very much, Monica. I appreciate.
You will find links to Nadege's book and her website on this episode's landing page, which is astepahead.pro/026. It's the 26th episode of the A Step Ahead podcast series. As we talked about understanding yourself and adjusting your way of leading people, way of leading teams, way of working in organizations to your individual type of energy, to your individual preferences. I also got another speaker who told us about how she was doing it, also including Global Disc as one of the useful tools in this process. And let me recommend this podcast episode to you. The title goes, Don't Fly Blind, Decoding Your Leadership Algorithms. And it's the previous episode on this podcast, the episode number 25. Today, we discussed psychological safety and also how important it is that we feel confident, we feel safe enough to address some of the interpersonal issues that we are having in our collaboration, including managing energy and the different needs that we have. Nadege was talking about boundaries. I would like to highlight the importance of the environment that lets us speak about our needs and our boundaries in a safe way. And this precisely is the psychological safety that I want to tell you about. Let me recommend another episode where this area is very nicely, in a very interesting way, discussed with Alexandre Messager, who works as a consultant with medical teams, helping them raise the level of psychological safety and really obtaining fantastic work, fantastic results through that. And this is the episode number 23. And finally, why is it important to talk about your natural energy, your boundaries, your natural needs, your styles, your leadership style within the area of business, management, and leadership? Yes, precisely because what we do is one part of the game, and how we do this is another part of the game, and together they create the big picture. This is why I would recommend the very first episode which I recorded in this English-speaking podcast series, The Human-Centered Leadership, The Cure for Times of Change, and the conversation with Kinga Jaśkowiak from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, who is sharing many of her insights about why we really matter in this business game, we as humans. Thank you so much, Nadege, for being such a great guest today. Thank you to all of you who were listening to the podcast. I hope you've been enjoying it. So talk to you next time.